So, welcome to the podcast. And my guest this week is Chris Barker, who is the managing director of Manchester Money. Chris and I were talking about his journey before he set up Manchester Money and the reasons why he set up Manchester Money. What sort of been the biggest challenges for him? I know he's sort of done quite a lot on digital marketing, which we will talk about, and really to also talk about the future of Manchester Money as well and how he's looking to grow. So, welcome to the podcast, Chris. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Craig, you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good, thank you. So we've had a little chat before we started recording, and it's great to hear that you are finally bursting your podcast bubble or popping your cherry, shall we say, on the
Yeah,
podcast. This is the first one you're on.
I am a podcast virgin, unfortunately. So yeah, so go easy on me. This is the first time I've done it.
You'll be absolutely fine, mate. Absolutely fine. I am looking forward to hearing all about sort of Manchester Money and your journey. And we sort of had a bit of a background with Countrywide, and we'll talk
Yeah,
about that and things like that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting this recording. I know, like a lot of people, will take a lot of hints, tips, and a lot away from what hearing about your journey, mate, and what you've been doing over the past few years. So and the transitions you've made and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to myself hearing all about it, because I think sometimes when I get guests on the podcast, it's people that I already know and I've known for a few years and things like that. Whereas with yourself, it's just been through social media. We've never really sort of spoken on a one-to-one
no,
basis. So I'm looking forward to hearing where your head's at, mate. That's what I like to do, is understanding why people make decisions and heads at and mindset and all the rest of it.
yeah,
So yes. But I will try and it will be a comfortable ride, hopefully. Hopefully a
good,
comfortable ride.
good.
So
And
fine,
hopefully I
Chris, do
won't
you
bore you
want
to
to?
death either.
Oh mate, don't worry. No, you won't be. Absolutely not. So, just first of all, for people that don't know you and who you are, do you want to do a bit of a introduction and your background?
Yeah, so I'm Chris Barker, managing director of Manchester Money. It's been trading just over 3.5 years now. I got into financial services in 2010. 2010, probably one of the most difficult times when lending was at 25% deposit, clean credit reports. It was tough. I was in probably one of the poorest towns in the country, in Burnley, as a
Right.
tradie advisor with Countrywide. So yeah, it's been a difficult 10 years to get to where we are now, but with quite a few bumps and pivots and various other things along the way. But I got into the industry on the back of buying my first house in 2007. I used this guy. I think he was around Stockport area, and I was working in Stockport at the time. And after several meetings with him, I was like, God, if this guy can do it, anyone can do it. And no disrespect to him, but it was he had a big fancy car, nice suit, and it just seemed to be a job that I would quite want to, dealing with people, numbers, those type of things. So I got made redundant from the co-op in 2009. I worked on online retail, and I was a sales manager there. So that gave me the perfect opportunity to get into financial services. I had a bit of redundancy money, I had a bit of time, to select the right career move. I'd actually applied a couple of years before to get in as a mortgage broker, but because I didn't have the qualifications or the experience, it was just nobody would take you on. So I managed to get a trainee role with Countrywide. They put you through the CMAP, all that type of stuff, and
Right.
the first 6 months were tough, and 3 or 4 times I nearly quit. Which, if you speak to many advisors that work at Countrywide, they all go through that same pain. I hear that first 6 months are very difficult. And the first 12 months, I was actually the lowest performing advisor within the region. I only banked 27 grand in my first 12 months, so I was right at the bottom of the table, and it was hard to read that. But I think what that did, those first 12 months, it taught me quite a lot about self-generation, how to do the job, self-investment, and basically the want to get better and not for that to happen again. So I stayed there for 2.5 years, probably about 2 years too long. I struggled with the culture, the micromanagement, the constant reporting of figures, you have breakfast meetings every morning, having to stay in the office till 8 o'clock at night, weekly meetings in Chorley where you were told how rubbish you were at your job. It was just a difficult environment. And, I'd like to have got out quite a bit sooner, but to go self-employed, I had to make sure that I had a good client book behind me, a good referral network, and I'd got my profile on social media, on Facebook really at that time, to make sure that the transition would be quite straightforward. I didn't have to rely on an estate agency or anybody else, to get the business. So after 2.5 years, I felt it was the right time to make that step across. And then I went working with MAB. There was a local estate agent in Littleborough where I was based, but I might get one lead a week from those. So again, I knew that with the referral network that I had and the stuff I was getting through the networking I was doing through BNI and through me playing quite a lot of sports in the local town that I worked, that I lived in, and Facebook, I didn't need the estate agency. So I stayed with them till 2018, and Manchester Money kind of was born through several Twitter conversations and flirting with Martin Stewart of London Money. And my intention was, before we even talked about like the Money Group and the concept of what it is now, was to actually go and work with Martin down in London. And I toyed with it a few times. I think I've been in touch with Andrew Montlake at Correco a couple of times about opportunities down there. So anyway, went down to meet Martin and Scott, and they unveiled the TMG concept. So small individual DA firms in local areas up and down the country, and I'm like, straight away within 30 seconds, I got it, and I thought, I love Manchester. Didn't ask about any of the commercials, the numbers, or anything like that. I just knew straight away that was what I wanted to do. That I wanted to have my own business that I could build myself, with my own principles, my own kind of service levels, and of how I kind of have always done business with my clients, and it just fit perfectly for us. So we had no branding, we had no CRM, we had no website, we just had the name. And then from there, 3 years on now, we're a team of 14 if you include Lewis. So that's 9 advisors. One of those advisors employed, but Beth will be going self-employed in the new year, hopefully. And then we've got 3 admin support staff, but we're going to continue to grow that for the next 12 months. And if we can get to double the advisor numbers, proper operations manager, more admin support, apprentice marketing, and then see where we go from there, really.
No, I think, to be fair, it's really interesting to hear where, like, we're going to talk about your future and where it's going and what the future looks like for Manchester Money. But like, there's loads of things I wrote down there, Chris, when you're sort of speaking, because I think it is like, you were so honest about like your start up with Countrywide and how it wasn't for you and the micromanaging thing. And it is for some people. It is. Some people love and thrive on that environment. But you being brutally honest in a world of that I see where, oh, if you're not earning 6 figures as a mortgage broker, you're doing something wrong, and all that bull that comes out, like the solder roll and all the things I talk about. You being brutally honest, saying like banking issuing 26 grand in your first year, and you look at from where you've gone from that to today, and that's just down to you and your own mentality, your own drive, your own persistence. I'm guessing from what the sound of it, and your own values. Then that's just such an amazing story to hear, and people will be able to relate to that and think, actually, you can't, from the sort of where you were and where your head was at the sort of, as you sort of at the end of the Countrywide days, and like you say, you was, what was that, 2013? So you've got sort of 8 years of 8.5 years later, where you've come from that to then to where you are now. You must, when you look back, and if you do look back, that must put a big smile on your face.
People ask me that question all the time, and I kind of don't look back. I don't reflect. I probably reflect whenever the journey ends, I think, because I'm that focused on just driving forward and being a better business and growing. That's kind of all I focus on every day. I don't look back at what I've achieved, and I will do in time, no doubt. But that's not for now. That's for later.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't
Good
think, will
mates.
you ever get that goal? That's something
Probably not.
yeah. No, I don't, I
No,
agree with you, Chris. I don't think, no. Go on,
no.
sorry.
I'm very driven. For success, and throughout my career, wherever I've worked, being on the shop floor at the co-op, or I've worked on building sites, I've always been interested in the numbers of the business, of what the figures are and what the turnover is, and all that. That's always interested me wherever I've worked. So I kind of always knew that I'd end up in a position like this, whether it had been in financial services or something else. I kind of knew that I would at some point run my own business, because that's always interested me. I also failed my business studies A level, funnily enough, as well. So again, anybody that's failed their
Yeah.
exams, whether it be degrees or business studies, never give up, because it doesn't. It's not. You'll get where you want to get if you believe in yourself. And I've heard you talk to brokers about, on some of your podcasts, about lockdown and what that did, and I don't want to sound selfish, but for our business, it was the best thing that happened to us. What it enabled me to do was that 4 weeks when nothing was open, it enabled me just to sit back and look at the business, and look at the personnel that we had, and create a new sales process, a new marketing process, and as well as a new recruitment process for us to be able for the business to work. And I wouldn't have had that time to do it because I was still being a busy mortgage broker while trying to grow the business. Well, you can't do both. It's too hard, because you're then working 16 hours a day, and you just can't do it. So my kind of then the plan was to make sure that as soon as possible bring on enough advisors, which meant that I didn't have to advise, so I could then work on the business properly, not work on it, and then continue the growth. And the biggest thing is recruitment, that you're only going to get that growth if you get the right people in your business. And listen, we're not for everybody, as probably your business isn't, but if you get the right people within it that believe in you and believe in the brand, and they want to be successful and they want to hit high numbers, it just gives you so many more options. And the mistake that we've made in the past, and it's not advisors who've worked with us before, but we've brought on the wrong people for the wrong reasons. It's wrong time, wrong place for some of them, maybe. But we know that because we've learned from that, so we won't make that mistake again. In 2 years' time, we might be in a different position where we'll take on advisors without experience. But at the minute, we're not at that stage, because we don't have 15 introducers or estate agents working with us yet. Hopefully we will do in time, but at the moment we're not in that position. So we kind of want experienced advisors who have got certain numbers behind them, obviously just for the growth reasons at the moment. But that'll change. That'll change in time.
And I think, I've again written loads of things down there, because one thing that I get asked quite a few times, which is something you sort of talked about there, was working on it or in it. And I think that's sort of something I was going to ask you about. When did you, and to be fair, Chris, I knew this conversation was just going off on a tangent. That's why I said to you, there's no hidden agenda on this there's no agenda on this podcast. It is a conversation. Who knows where it's going to go? And I think that's clear to see now. We're both in that sort of similar sort of thing, where it's about what you say and sort of sparking the things in my mind. But one thing I get asked is, when did you decide to work on the business rather than in the business? So that's a sort of question for you that I wanted to ask you, is from what you've just sort of said, when was that decision made?
During lockdown, to be able
Okay.
to get to that point, the actual point where I got to where I actually started working just on the business was around about February.
Right. Okay.
So I stopped
Okay.
advising in February, because I'd had enough people within to make sure that the business wasn't relying on me bringing business in, for cash flow. And we also brought on Beth as a trainee advisor. She'd been working for Sequence, funnily enough, at William H. Brown. And I won't go over the
Right.
experience that she had. Maybe you invite her on the podcast at some point. But what that enabled me to do was pass on all my existing clients, onto Beth for her to train. She does her
Right.
own admin, train process, train criteria. and learn the job quickly, kind of fast track her a little bit, so that by the end of this year or the next year, she can then become self-employed. So that enabled me then, that freed me up that time to where I can then just work on the business and the growth.
Right. Okay. And was that always the plan, or was it
Yes.
just something that, yeah, it was always the plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
I suppose that the kind of the stars aligned at that time for it to happen.
Yeah.
Bit of
Yeah.
luck,
I think
maybe.
that's it.
Don't know.
I know, well, I think it's down, like you say, it's about timing, isn't it? Like you felt that timing was right. I knew when I set up CS Mortgage Solutions, I was sales manager, going back to becoming, like, not going back, but becoming a mortgage advisor, mortgage broker again. And but I always knew that the long-term plan was always to get to the numbers, where then I felt as though I could work on the business rather than in it, kind of thing. And I was lucky enough to do that, like you have been about, and it was just about right timing for me. It was just interested to sort of see whether, and you answered the question, because it was always the plan. It wasn't just something you woke up today and thought, right, I've now got, this is what I need to. You're not sat here writing 2022 business plan thinking, right, I want to work on it rather than in it, kind of thing. You always knew that's something you wanted to do from the start. It was just getting the timing right and getting the numbers right, and looking where it was going.
Yeah,
So definitely.
absolutely. And you just kind of know when the time's right. And just going back to your comment there on business plans, I don't have a business plan. I think they're absolutely pointless, because you'll spend time writing them, you'll put it in your desk, and then you won't see it again until you decide to try and write another one. I try and break down my goals for the business in quarters. So I'll
Okay.
do myself a list of what I want to achieve in quarter one or quarter two, whatever it may be, and then I'll tick them off as I've achieved that. I find that's easy to manage, because it's stuff that you need to look at straight away that are important. Whereas a 5-year business plan, I think you would just kind of just float along, and hopefully you get there. I think it's pie in the sky that you have a 5-year business plan person. Don't get me wrong, I've got a 5-year plan that what are the things I want to achieve. But in terms of like numbers and stuff, there's so many things that can change. So you've got to be able to pivot. So I think for me, because I do have quite a poor attention span as well, but for me, it's easy just to break things down on a course, and if I don't achieve them, I'll move on to the next one. But then just add things that I think that we need to get to, and that works. That works for me.
No, and to be honest with you, Chris, it works for me as well. I work in exactly the same way. I've use the book I use is called Traction. It's something that we use as a network. Like, I was introduced to me by somebody within the network, and that talks about, yes, the 10-year plan, the 5-year plan, the 3-year plan, but it does break it down to quarterly things. It's like the 3 months worth of rocks, and I think that's
Yeah,
that. I just work on that. Like, I I don't know, like, I don't know if you did the same, but when I looked to set up Sales Mortgage Solutions sort of 4.5 years ago, coming up to 5 years ago, I spent all the time on a business plan, and it just got ripped. Like, it was just wasted so much time. And then that's the
yeah.
big. I'm glad you said the same, because that was the same for me. So I just stopped doing them. I thought to myself, yes, I've got my 10-year, my 5-year, my 3, and but I just worry about the 3-month thing. That's all I worry about, is the 3-month. This, what do I need to want to achieve in the next 3 months? How many, and then, like you say, take them off. I think it keeps it simpler, I think.
And it's more measurable as well, because a 5-year plan, it's hard to measure, isn't it? Like after 9 months, what are you measuring? Whereas if you're breaking it down into quarters or every 3 months, you can measure what you've achieved, and then it also pushes you. If you achieve them quicker, it then enables you to bring more things onto the next quarter, or even bring them on earlier. It just works for me. It's just I just see it as an easier way to develop the business, really. But it
You
also
just
then
got,
puts me under pressure, because I have them pinned on my wall, so
right.
it's there every day. It's visual. I see it, so it reminds me. So it puts me under pressure to make sure, oh shit, I haven't done that yet. Right, I need to focus on that today or tomorrow, whatever it may be. It just works for me. It does work for me.
No, it's a good point. And so, from what you're saying from that, is that there's two things. One, it holds you accountable. So we had a bit of a chat before the podcast talking about it's quite a lonely role being a managing director and things like that. So obviously that will help you feel you've got a plan and you're feeling accountable for it. But then also as well, it helps you be adaptable, because that's the big thing for me that I've found running my own firm, is you've just got to be adaptable with what situation throws at you. So if you just got a 10-year plan and you stick to your 10-year plan and it's very rigid and you don't adapt it, I just don't think that's possible. I just think
I agree.
you'll just spend all the time chasing it when actually you won't get anything done.
Absolutely right. Yeah. No, absolutely right.
Going back to something I sort of said, and it's something that I sort of look at is you sort of said about not looking over your shoulder and or looking at the past and not looking back at what or looking at what you've achieved. You've always got goals to achieve. You've always got something. You've always focused on moving forward rather than looking over the past. And I'm a firm believer that when I look at what's happened in my business or for myself, I'm not one because I've always like you. I'm very much like you in that way that I've always got goals to achieve. So I just look at achieving those. But do you enjoy like the goals? You say you'll never achieve them, but how do you feel about the ride on getting there? Is that something that you enjoy? Do you feel as though that's sort of quite you've got shackles on with that, or is it something that I say that you look to on a positive mindset really of enjoying it?
Love it. Absolutely love it. Listen, running a business comes with, a lot of different pressures and stresses and issues, but I love it. I absolutely, and I can't use another word apart from that. It's my passion. It's a hobby. I don't see it as a job. I can't think of anything else I'd rather do than what I'm doing at the moment. And it gets me out of bed every day and keeps me motivated. I probably think about work more than anything else. I don't switch off. I'm going on holiday next week for the first time in 2 years, and it'll probably be the first time that I'm thinking about turning my laptop off. Whether I do or not, it's a different matter. But I don't. I just work all the time. I answer emails up to 11 o'clock at night. And listen, I'm not kind of saying this is the right thing to do for you because burnout can happen. But because I'm not passionate about the business and what we do, I just love it. It's my hobby. It's something I love more than doing anything else. And I think I think if you don't have that, it's very hard to kind of grow anything, because if you don't have that passion and that hunger and that drive, I suppose you then just see it as a job, and you're looking forward to Friday tea time every week when you can finish for the week. I've never looked at that like that.
No, you're right. I think that if you've got that attitude, I think it's hard for some people to see you're like the managing director of that Manchester Money. You can't ever switch off. I don't think you ever physically can. But at the same time, it's not like a 9 to 5 clocking in,
No.
clocking out kind of corporate. Like you look at going back to another things you hated about Countrywide with the micromanagement and the culture and things like that. Then you did look forward to the Friday or the Saturday
You
or whatever
did.
it was you could clock off because
Yeah.
you was in that mindset of like another week and getting that done. Whereas for you now, and I relate to you in terms of what you're sort of saying, because you have to love what you're doing. It's not like there's no Mondays, there's no Tuesdays, no Wednesdays. Every day is it's just the ride that you're going on and another wave towards your goal. And the interesting sort of you talked about sort of like the challenges you've had over the years, and you're honest with that, Chris, in terms of the sort of the challenges. And we all go through heartache, we all go through pain, we all go through challenges. Everybody does in the everyday and in every walk of life, but I think it's how you deal with those sort of challenges. And you sort of there was a few things on there thinking, because there's quite a few brokers I know at the moment that that first 6 month in, they'll talk. I'm like talking to them, and they'll sort of speak to me and think, "I'm ready to jack this in. I'm done with this. This is not what I thought. I was sold this." So it's, and I see that. So it's interesting to hear you felt that same way of thinking. You're sort of so many months into being a broker at Countrywide, and you're thinking, "Oh, this is not for me. I'm done with this." So what made you sort of what was going through your head thinking, "No, I've got to have that persistence to stick at this. This is going to be right."
Again, I think it was at Countrywide. I think it was around about Easter time. I think it was. So I started in the October, and I might have had a couple of days off over Easter, and I kind of just I was thinking I'd actually applied for a job back in retail, what I'd done before, very similar to the role but at a different firm,
Right.
and I'd had an interview lined up, and I was sat in my bedroom, and I just kind of had a 20-minute session of clarity. Just sat there thinking, look, Chris, you've wanted to do this for so many years. You've got the opportunity now. Yeah, it's tough, but it's tough for a reason. And if it was easy, everybody would do it. And the only thing that you can do is, rather than, and I hate, and we might mention this before, but one thing I hate, and it's my biggest pet hate, is blame, where people blame and don't take accountability. I hate that. Why you're not performing? Or I've not got the leads. I've not. No, listen, you're responsible for whatever your performance is. You can't blame something or somebody else. So I just thought, you know what? Just back yourself. Just continue. Things will get easier. And if you want to be successful, then you just got to carry on, and hopefully, with the right attitude, which I had, you'll get to where you want to get to. And I mentioned you. I know I've heard you mention it in podcasts before about people taking responsibility, and people have to, whatever. And I think that's in any walk of life, isn't it? Not necessarily just work, but
exactly.
Don't blame or look for excuses. Take responsibility and just crack on and get on with it. And if you back yourself, you'll do all right.
You're absolutely right, Chris. And it's so funny because when I didn't write down the word blame, I just wrote down, when you were talking about when you sort of sat yourself down in your bedroom, I just wrote down then responsibility, and then you naturally then came into that. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I think I've done a few podcasts, one recently with Alex Curtis, and was a guest on there talking about the one thing in life, what's my sort of one thing that I hate, and blame is that exactly that thing. It is. So I wrote down that you were at the crossroads in terms of what you were looking to do. You had a look at yourself in the mirror, not physically, but obviously at that time. And that's what I look at. You hold the mirror up to yourself and go, right, what are you do? Like, what are you doing? Like, this is you. This is your life. This is your responsibility. And obviously, you made that. It's just you didn't take the easy option of going back to. It's like so good to hear that actually you were at the crossroads thinking, I've got a job, going back to doing what I did before, because people naturally take the easy way out. People naturally look for the path of least resistance. That's what we're looking for. Well, you didn't take that. It would have been so easy to go, do you know what? I'm going to go back to that. That's my comfort. That's my security. However you want to call it, and look at what you've achieved. Look at like you said, I know you're not keen on reviewing, looking at what you've done, but from that decision of taking the responsibility for yourself, which is exactly what I think you should be doing, but that's just my opinion. And you've sort of done that. You've taken on that board, because that's something I would do and go, right, where's this going? Responsibility, I think, is whatever you do, it's in every walk, everyday life, it's responsibility. It's like the blame culture for everything, whether it's business, whether it's your personal life or whatever. You are the person that would go through that sort of day-to-day routine of blaming, or you're the person that takes responsibility. And I think that will help if you're that kind of person, Chris, and that comes across in your core values, which you talked about a little bit earlier, and you're sort of, they say you culture the firm of Manchester Money, and that's who you are, then you're going to get people on board with Manchester Money that are of similar mindset to you, which is about responsibility.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And when I got well, I think that's more stemmed from when I got made redundant. So when I got made redundant from the co-op, I had quite a good salary and a bonus scheme. So the income that I had and what I lost was quite significant. And then when I went into Countrywide, I went on the lower scale, which was quite a poor basic. And obviously with 26 band income, as you know, that won't come with much commission or bonus. So I've basically taken more than a 50% pay cut in that period. And the attraction to go back into retail at a high salary again with a good bonus scheme was like, shall I do it? But rather than throw the towel in, I thought, no, there's only you that can control your income levels in the future and whatever success you achieve. So you've wanted to do it for so long, just keep at it. And then when I went self-employed, when I went self-employed, I did it with, again, as you can appreciate, on a low salary, not much bonus. There wasn't that much savings in the bank account, obviously, at that time. And it was 2 weeks into the self-employed role, and we'd been to a farm in Bolton, and I'd gone to pay for obviously for entry for 4 of us, and my card declined. didn't have a penny in the bank. Didn't tell my partner at the time. Just said, look, my car's not working. Do you mind paying this? And what I had to do when I got home at night is to go and get a payday loan through, I can't remember, it was Wong or whatever at that time. And that was the biggest catalyst for me to make sure that would never happen again. And that's that. I think about that all the time. That always continues to drive me for where I was at that time to where I'll never be again, financially, because it was tough. But I backed myself, and that, going self-employed with no savings. And I know you've mentioned before that, you should really think about having 6 months income behind you. I absolutely agree with you, because that puts less pressure on you. But on the flip side, certain people probably need that pressure to succeed, and that worked for me. So yeah, going back to take responsibility for your performance and your income levels, because it's down to you. It's not down to the firm that you're working with or anybody else. It's down to you, how much you want it and how much you're willing to put in terms of time, effort, and attitude as well.
I go back to one of the first things I said, which is about, Chris, I really appreciate your honesty, because you're on here on a podcast talking about something that's so personal to you, but you've used that moment to then sort of drive you and inspire on to then making sure that you never put yourself in that situation again. And I think it's not until people experience that, whatever it is like until you've actually experienced that moment of your card declining, you've got no backup, and you're thinking, yeah, you're on a payday loan. What an inspiration to think, you know what, I've got to make this work, and I've got to drive, and you will make it work, because it's down to you. And mindsets, I don't use the word mindset quite a lot, because I just don't know. It just gets thrown about too easily in terms of mindset. But I think in terms of what you've shown at that period in time, and when you could have taken the easy option, what a massive inspiration to go, do you know what? This is my lowest point. It can only get better at this point, but it's down to you. And you've it would have been easy to blame and done that and like told all the reasons why it's not worked. But actually, you've not done that. You've thought, do you know what? This is my responsibility. And what a great story, and what a great inspiration to hear that actually from rock bottom of where you've sort of used that. And even when people are rock bottom and then it's not worked out, but then are not gone on to be successful, but they've done something about it, been rock bottom and tried to make it work rather than throw the towel in. I've got a lot more time for those people, because they will try and make it work. It will fail. They will try and make it work again. It will fail. They've got the resilience to keep at it and the responsibility, rather than the blaming or the just throwing the towel in at that point, which had been easy to do.
Yeah, and I think the topical person at the moment is somebody to follow the lead on that will be Tyson Fury. If you look at Absolutely. Where he was, 4 years ago to where he's finished up on Saturday evening or Sunday morning. Yeah. What an inspiration that guy is, and he's right, because mindset is everything. If you've got the right mindset, and glasses always half full, and what you can achieve is it's endless, really. I believe. I'm a massive believer in that. If you think you can achieve something, you will do. You will do. There's only one person stopping you, and that's yourself. And Tyson Fury will always say that the only person that will ever beat him in a fight will be himself.
Yeah. And it's true. Like, if you look at where he's come from, and they I'm a big fan of Tyson Fury. I've read his books, and I'm not sure how much he wrote of the books and how much it was ghostwriting and things like that. Well, I'm not here to question that on the podcast, but the way that he comes across, and he is only, but that's the same for everybody, isn't it? You're only defeated by yourself. You spend half your life. I think one of our mutual good friends in Jonathan Needham, he put on social media recently, he was on LinkedIn or whatever, the post where like there's an apple in the mirror, and then on the other side, on the apple, and that's absolutely spot on, because you can spend so much time worrying about what other people are doing. And Tyson Fury could have done that. He could have been worried about all these other people in the boxing fraternity and what they're doing. But he doesn't. He just goes at it himself. He worries about his own mindset, worries about his own family, his own situation, and has that drive and motivation to go. And it's great that he can flick it like a switch, like he can. But he just backs himself. He will always back himself 110%, like you will back yourself. And yes, you will have. Tyson Fury has good days and bad days. He like as we all do, as you do, and you've been honest with that. And I do. Like there's days where you sit thinking, oh, like, is anything else could go wrong today? And but then it's just what we all have those kind of moments. But it's about then just sort of stepping away from that. I don't know. I don't know how you deal with those moments, Chris. That'd be probably a good question to ask you, because I just sort of mine tend to be just step away from them and try not to get too down in them. I normally sleep on something like that and sort of walk away from it, sleep on it, and then look at tomorrow after I've slept on it first thing in the morning, because I'm a morning person. I'll just then look and look at the solutions then rather than sort of dwell on the problems. I don't know what your thoughts are on
Yeah,
that, Chris.
yeah, I'm very much the same, and I've kind of learned to be like that through actually doing mortgages, because sometimes when you'll get a decline for whatever reason, rather than worry about it and stress about it at that time, sometimes it's better, or I found it better, to give it a half a day or a day after, and you'll come up with a solution. So again, it's this. I kind of had that attitude within business. Something happens, rather than react straight away, I let my emotions die down. Rather than make an emotional decision, think about it overnight or maybe a day or so, and then come up with the right solution. And that's the right way to do it. Because it's like in anything, if you make an instant reaction to something that happens, 90% of the time it's probably going to be the wrong reaction, because it's an emotional decision, isn't it, rather than a practical one.
Yeah. It's like the chimp paradox going. I don't know if you've read
Yes,
that book.
I've read
Yes,
that book.
yes.
Yes, yeah.
So similar sort of, it is sort of, and once you've read that book, it's then you sort of when the chimp's there, and so then you
Absolutely.
just know, don't you? You just
Yeah,
know. You just then know, and it's then got like, well, this chimp needs to
get
go
back in
away
his
now. Stop
box. Yeah,
talking. Yeah, exactly. Get yourself back in the box and stuff like that.
yeah.
Do you read much then? Is that your development, Chris? Is like
Yeah,
how like
yeah.
yeah.
I'm an avid reader. I don't watch much telly. I've started to listen to more podcasts recently, funnily enough. But yeah, I've read over lockdown, especially. I read a great book by a guy called Paul Cheetham Carks. He owns quite a large firm in Manchester called Sedulo, who do bits of everything really. They do investments. He's an accountant by trade, and his book was brilliant. It's only 200 pages long, but how he grew his business and scale, and how long it took him to get to £1 million turnover, and a lot of that resonated with what I was trying to do, and I've kind of used some of the stuff that he's done, to get to where he is. And Eddie Hearn's book was very good. Relentless. Tyson Fury's, I've read both of his. Alex Ferguson, Duncan Bannatyne. I'll just read whatever I can, and I like to read kind of not necessarily just autobiographies, but different areas, so that and not much relates to what we do on a daily basis, but a lot of the principles and kind of the work ethic kind of does revolve back into the same area.
Yeah. I think you'll relate to it no matter what you do. I think like you can sort of say you've gone sport, and quite a lot of sport on the books you're reading. So I think, but it relates to in terms of anything really. It doesn't matter what you do in life, what job you do, anything like that. I think you can relate to it. Every single book that you've read, from what you've sort of said there, I've read quite a few of those books. I've not done the Eddie Hearn one because I'm not a massive fan of Eddie Hearn, to be honest with you. So I think I
No.
need to sort of step away from my preconceived ideas about Eddie Hearn, and so I'll probably read his book then, because I've not done that one at all.
Yeah, it's good. It's just good. Again, just on what it takes to be successful. Really, relentless. It says it in the title that you've got to be. And Surrounded by Idiots, I've read that recently. That's quite an interesting book. But yeah, I'll just try and read. I'll try and read whatever. To be fair, I'm reading a couple of David Lloyd's at the moment, so I'm just a bit of humour and away from kind of business. The cricketer David Lloyd, ex-cricketer.
All right, okay, right, okay,
Humble, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Those are quite fascinating stories in there, because he played cricket in the same league as that I currently play in Lancashire League. So he's telling
right,
quite a few stories about ex-players on the league circuit, and obviously I know quite a few of them, and some of the
right.
stories are quite funny.
I think you need to I'm like you. I do break up a little bit where I'll have a business one, and then it tends to be autobiography, kind of businessy kind of thing, and then go something totally off piece and go something a little bit more humorous and stuff like that, and then pick back up and I tend to alternate them between business but they always tend to be sport. I'm thinking back to the books that I really like the David Goggins one. I don't know if you've ever read or looked at what he does, but
No,
the David Goggins one, who's like I won't spoil it, but he's like such an inspiration. His book is such an inspiration, and I follow him on social media now from where he was sort of killing vermin in fast food stores in no that's exactly what he was a
right.
vermin
I'll
killing
write that
fast
down.
food stores in America, and he was a massive, like if you look at the books and and look at the pictures of where he has got like a then and now kind of pictures going on and what he achieved with, and it's all about mindset. It is all about his sort of like what he's achieved. Yeah, I won't spoil anything more at that point of view, but I got inspiration quite a lot from that, thinking whenever you're down, whenever like there is always an answer and always a way out. And like from a reflection point of view, I think it's just a better way of dealing with it and keeping the chimp in the box rather than letting it loose. So yeah.
Yeah, and autobiographies are great, because I love to hear somebody's story, the background, and what's got them to where they are. And even when I look on websites for different businesses that we might work with, I'll always look at like the managing director's story, where they've been, where they've come from. I just love hearing about them. I've always been intrigued on how people have made a success of themselves. I've always been, from being a young age, I've always thought, well, how have they done that? Can I do that? I've always been like that for some reason. I
Right.
don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why. What there must be some that I can't remember within my childhood that's made me have that. I don't know, but it's always been there for some reason.
I think, like I said, I think if you brought up that way and sort of, what is it, nature or nurture kind of thing. I think I'm not a believer in either one really. I think it's just down to who you are and like you said, there is a part of nature and part of nurture in there. But I think if you've got that from the early age, and it will always help you through your working life, and that will always
Yeah,
be your culture. I think definitely, definitely.
absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely.
And if you look at in terms of the people in your business and the people in your team, are they like you sort of say you've made some mistakes in terms of recruitment? I've made some mistakes in terms of recruitment. You always will. I think that's a natural thing to happen. But how is sort of that you've sort of grown a team to where it's at right now? Is that down to the culture? Is that down to you? Where's that sort of how have you been sort of done so well from growing it from over the last 3.5 years?
So initially, we used a recruitment agency at the start, and we're still using now and again. I try not to as much, obviously, for cost reasons, as we're gaining more. Our profile's growing, obviously, on social media within the industry. That having to do that will be less and less. But initially, I went to a recruitment agency, and obviously, and this was where that we create the profile of the advisor that we want, minimum standards, certain kind of experience, I suppose the personality. There was about 15 bullet points that we were looking for. So that would they then go away and obviously find these people for you. And that enables us to save quite a lot of time and hassle of finding them, because recruitment's very tough. It's probably the hardest part of the business, I believe. So when we use them, they put the right people in front of me, and I'd like to think I'm a decent judge of person. So within about 10 seconds of having a conversation, if they're right for you or not. And when we sit down and chat, we don't talk about income and splits and leads and stuff like that. I'll talk to them for about 45 minutes about my journey, what Manchester Money is about, what we're trying to do, where we're trying to get to, and just kind of, create a bit of a story of the business for them to say, you know what, I want to be part of this. And then hopefully the conversation about splits isn't really, don't get me wrong, we offer splits that are right for the industry, but I think that's the last conversation that we have. It is more about, we want you to be part of this. It's not just a seat to write mortgages. I want you to be part of the growth and be part of what we are at Manchester Money. Be proud of it as well, and hopefully that all the guys that work for me are as proud as Manchester Money. Sorry, work with me, not work for me. Sorry, are as proud as Manchester Money as I am, because I like to try and keep them part of the growth. And I always say to them, look, I'm not your boss, although I have the title of MD. I'm just steering the ship. I'm making the pathway for the journey's end, and that's all my role is. And I'm certainly don't micromanage anybody or ring them up on every Friday. Right, where's your business? That's. I think if you need to do that, you've got your own people in your business. For me, you should
Exactly.
have. The guys are self-employed, obviously sitting under the Manchester Money, but they're all self-motivated, driven individuals, and that's kind of the attitude and the people that we want within the business. We don't want someone to say, yeah, I'll just do 2 or 3 mortgages a month here, and then I've done my bit. I've got my monthly income now to pay my bills, and that's it. Those aren't the type of people that we look for. And using the recruitment agency helps us do that. And then we've had other guys come on board from referrals within the business who have worked with advisors that work for us. So that always helps as well, because that's an organic growth that doesn't cost us anything then. But we spent quite a lot of money on recruitment over the last 18 months, but it's been worth it in my opinion so far.
I think going back to what you sort of said then about, it's not about commission splits. First of all, obviously they are important, but it's not. If you go back to what, and I made a note what you said at the beginning, when you first met and I went down to London and looked at what the Money Group, it was all about the culture. What you never talked about splits, incomes, that sort of thing. It wasn't about that. It was all about the culture and where it was going. And so that's naturally going to be the same for you when you're looking about recruitment. If the first conversation that somebody had with me or was about, well, what are your commission splits? So, well, no, that's not how we work. You're not the right fit for what we're looking to do and where we're going, like you said, and all those sorts of things. So because you were like that with the beginning, when you first looked to join the group, then obviously it's had sort of that knock-on effect with the whole culture and with people that have joined the firm as well. And because they're buying into you, I didn't realize, Chris, how very similar in a lot of ways that, like, I've got advisors in the firm. I don't see them as I'm steering the ship. I'm just the MD. I don't see them as people work for me. Like, far from it. It's very much about, we're all in this together. We're very much a group of individuals that are looking to, like, we've got our own goals and things like that. Absolutely. But we're moving this ship forward and we're driving it forward, really. And that's sort of good that you've got that. I'm liking it to hear that you've got that similar sort of ethic and values from your own point of view and your firm's point of view as well.
I think you have to get loyalty personally. I think if you, and again, it's not for everybody, is it being managed like that? Some people need that constant reassurance, that constant measurement of what they're doing. But we'll never be that. They
can blame somebody else then. They can blame somebody else.
There you go. But we'll never be that. And, try and, I suppose it's because of yourself as well, Craig. You've got the same outlook as me, because the countrywide days, and for me, that's not how you do the job. It isn't. And so we try and do totally the opposite on how the guys are, I suppose, made to feel part of the business and part of the growth. And it's just important, because they if you don't make them feel part of it, then it's like, well, what's the point of them being here? They can quite easily go and do the job elsewhere with a network or directly authorised themselves, whatever it may be. But I think it's important that you make your team feel part of your growth. And I say this all the time, as a director, I'm not one of those that will pay themselves whatever's in the bank account every month and drive around in a fancy Porsche, because I know that happens. Not at all. In terms of what I pay myself, it's not changed for 2.5 years. And I'm not here to kind of line my pockets out of the business. So the harder they work, the more they give me. It's not like that. What we always will do is that any profits that we make, we continually try and reinvest, whether that be marketing, recruitment, more infrastructure, better systems, improvements to the website, and we'll always continue to do that. Because I think if you don't, again, you'll get resentment from your team.
Yeah.
If you're sat in your ivory tower with a nice watch
Exactly.
on and the rest, and the guys can see that, then who wants to do that? I certainly won't want to make, and I've said to the guys as well that, if we get to a stage where we sell the business, the guys will get looked after. They certainly won't be, because I remember when I was at MAB, and I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but when they floated on the stock market, and for however many millions that they made from the float, not a single penny was passed down to brokers, not a share option, not a £50 gift out, nothing at all. So you had, and I won't name names, but you had several directors ringing the bell at the London Stock Exchange, lining their pockets, and that stunk for me. That was the kind of the catalyst for me to leave MAB and to set up on my own, because I just thought that was horrendous that you would do that.
No. To be fair, Chris, you're not stepping out of order. I think, just to reassure you, I think it is for some people, and it's not for there's brokers I know that are at MAB and will always be at MAB. It's not a culture. I didn't join when I looked to set my firm up. I didn't want to be part of MAB. I chose the network I wanted to be with for various reasons, and MAB was like, that works for them. That's how they work, and they've got brokers working for them that I've sit comfortably within that kind of setup, and that's fine. That works for them. The same as the Countrywide, whereas in Sequence, they're all the same. It's just like your setup as my setup and makeup is slightly different, and that's why we're no longer there and working with those kind of people. And I'm the same as you. I think I hear about the directors of the firms that I've had to put my Range Rover Sport in for service, and it's cost me this much money, and my place in Marbella needs a paintwork doing. That's just not me. It would resent. I treat people how I wouldn't be treated myself, and I think that's, if I heard that from somebody running a firm, it's like, well, your values are wrong. You're not that. I say I've always said my firm was always set up on very much of like strong values, and ivory tower is something I talk about all the time. This is not for me of I gave up the nice salary and the commission and the sort of the employed role that I had, and then threw all that away, and then went for the insecurity of being self-employed with very income drop and all those sorts of things. But you just do that for a reason, and it's not for the sake of others. It's not for the sake of the people that's at the coalface, sort of working their fingers to the bone, to then sort of for me to be able to afford this, that, and that's just not how I work, and I'm fair with the commission splits as you will be, and that's just how, like, I reinvest everything that we make as a firm goes back into marketing and branding and making the place better and things like that. I think that's just what you have to do, because that's who you are and that's what your makeup is. That's
100%.
not. I think that's for me is right. But then the people that run the large corporates and the other things will feel that their way is right. That's fine. That's their choice, and they've got people who will work within that as the same as it's different for you and I. So, and I think I've really what I've really enjoyed about this podcast recording is that I never knew, obviously not speaking to you before with no preconceived ideas, and I just like have a few quick conversations on social media. It's then understanding how quite aligned our values are, and the way that you are and the way that I am, in terms of the way that our outlook on life, like I said, our values are, and how we want to be treated and how we treat people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of hit the nail on the head. Is people. That's the most important thing you've got to remember. It's not your numbers. It's your people on how much they enjoy the job, how empowered they are, and how happy they are. And without them being like that, then you don't have a business. It's simple. End of. And some businesses forget that, not just in our industry, but in retail, in construction, whatever it may be. They forget about the most important cogs in your wheel are your people. So you've got to look after them.
Definitely. To be honest with you, Chris, we're going to talk about digital marketing. We're going to talk about various other things. We've covered nothing on that whatsoever. But like, I think in terms of value and what we've talked about and hearing your story and your mindset and what your values are, I think that's just been far more valuable at this stage. We'll get you back on. Now you've popped your cherry on the podcasting. We'll get you back on and talking about digital marketing and how
Yeah.
you've helped that, and just focus really on that part of it. But I think in terms of, we've spent sort of a good part of an hour now talking about you and like and your journey, and I think a lot of people will sort of reminisce and like sort of relate to that and what you've done. So I think that's been like a valuable point. A very valuable part of the podcast is all about that, really, rather than talking about other, like the brand stuff and things like that. So and your honesty as well, I think I can't fault that. So I think I've taken up enough of your time on the podcast. I think that's a great place to end. But what I'd say, I think we need to get you back on the podcast fairly soon, just to specifically talk about your digital marketing and what you've done on your branding for the last 3.5 years, if that's all right.
Anytime, yeah, anytime. Really enjoyed it. And just a kind of a last note to finish on is, if anybody can do, if I can do it, anybody can. Like I said, I failed business studies, A level. So it's not necessarily that you need to have those kind of qualifications. Anything with anything, it's your mindset and your drive, and that's the two most important things. And then you'll get to wherever you want if you have those two principles, really.
Definitely. Chris, we're going to end on that like real sort of strong message to end it. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for agreeing to be coming on the podcast. Thank you most of all for your sheer honesty and sort of sharing your journey, really. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks for having me on. Really enjoyed it.